Welcome, welcome. I have to admit, Christine, I'm trying to look at all the beautiful things you have in your house. I'm so distracted instantly. This curved image, what is that? Can you unmute and are you comfortable sharing? Or have I just embarrassed
Sure.
you?
No, this is it's a painting on wood of a castle or palazzo outside of Florence, Italy. Sorry, and
Um,
it belonged to the de Medici family.
oh yeah.
And during the Middle Ages, it was used as a hospital. Trying to get it better. Can you see it now?
Oh yeah. Oh, the building belonged to the Medici family.
Yes, it's one of their palazzos.
Beautiful. And then you have all those. What are they like? What did I see? Yeah, like oh,
So
they're
these
just
are icons.
icons. Yeah, beautiful.
The two on the end are from Greece, and the one in the middle I bought in Istanbul in a shop of Russian icons.
Just gorgeous. Well, I couldn't help but drawing attention to that. It seemed like such a lovely way to start. Well, welcome to our group. You got to just pushed in to the pool. Um, well, most of the gang here has been with us before. Of course, I see Catherine. Hello, Catherine, and Chris, and Gayla, and Kelsey, and David, and Lori. Lori. Hello, Lori. Welcome. And Garth, and Barbara. Oh, here comes another Barbara. And Joni, and Carrie, and me. And did I say Garth? Yeah, I barely got to see Garth. Truth be told, Garth is always ready to go long before we start. And I always show up at the very last possible second, which doesn't mean you're not important to me. It just means that's my problem. For those of you that are not as familiar with how we do this, we are meeting just about every week, although I may have a problem meeting next week. I hate to say. Um, but we're meeting just about every week. And we take the first 5 minutes or so just to kind of let people get in the room, I don't know, talk about the weather, if people have an unusual question, or I'm super curious about the artwork in someone's house, it's just like that kind of stuff. Like every now and then I move over this way and someone says, "What the heck is that thing behind you?" And it's a museum replica of an African lion skull. And then I think, well, maybe I shouldn't have that. Maybe that's just too weird, but that's me. Um, and then for those of you that are joining us, for the first time or one of your first times, we typically have a topic of the day. We typically have something experiential. We usually have some discussion, and it's all in different orders depending on the day and the time. And that's kind of the overview. Does anybody have any special questions or special requests before we get going? No? All right. Well, one thing that I could potentially mention is that I have collapsed two newsletters together. And this is only going to be relevant for some of you, but I thought I'd take a moment to address it because we have a lot of regulars in the room. So last year I was doing something called the Old Soul Republic. And for almost the whole year, kind of fizzled at the end, I was sending a weekly, video message and writing or video message or both. And it was a smaller, separate group and the promise was no promotion. But it became a little tricky for different reasons that I'm not going to get into right now. And I decided a better thing, for an easier thing for me to do, frankly, was to use my bigger newsletter list, but clean it up, kind of excuse all the people that never open it. So I cut it in half, just sort of wipe people out and, deleted all the people that are never opening it or bouncing or whatever. So, but hopefully I successfully integrated all the Old Soul Republic people into the newsletter list so that if any of you signed up for one and not the other, you're still getting my weekly notes. The only other thing I would mention and why I mention this is because There are some occasions where you'll show up on a Thursday. As I say, next week could be an example because I have a conflict. And we're not doing this like typical, but more often than not, Garth is remarkably gracious and creative and finds a way to, either put an older video up or put half of a video up and then, get the group together to talk. So I'm saying this because maybe once in a while I'm not going to send a reminder on a Thursday. You can still come here. So we're here. We're doing this. We're going to keep doing this. That's the only thing I can think of as an announcement for today. Anything else, or we're just going to dive in?
Oh,
Yes.
do you need to be on your email list or something to get that?
If you want to get the newsletter, the easiest thing is to go to my website, which is my name, just Jonathan Ellerby. And then there should be like a newsletter link at the bottom of every page, and you just put your name on it. And then if you don't get it, then something went wrong. You can tell me here. But usually people get on it pretty easily, and then you can get off at any time you like. So there you go. Thanks for asking. Well, the big topic these days is that I have a book that's going to be released in February 20th. It's called The 7 Gateways of Spiritual Experience. And I thought today what I could do, because I am going to be talking a lot about spiritual experience until it's released. So hopefully that's interesting to you, or I'll have to beg your patience. But what I thought I might do today is kind of verbalize a little bit of what was actually just in the newsletter today, talk a little bit about sort of why I wrote this and why I think it's important, because I have to say I've rediscovered the material. The book was actually written a little while ago, and then it got reformatted and then found its publisher. So what I'll say is that I had a realization in my own life very recently about why I think a book about spiritual experience is important. And so I'd love to share just a little bit about that. I'm not going to do a long talk today. And I thought it might be interesting to just, and we do this once in a while, to really focus on questions and interests that you may have right now. And I don't mean, meaning anything relating to spiritual experience. And I'd love to hear from anyone and everyone. So you could start thinking a little bit about that. If there's anything you think you might want to talk about or ask about, because it's always interesting to me to find out what people are curious about, or what people are struggling with, or what people have clarity on. And I also really believe that if we're all here online at the same time, that we hold something for each other, that we are not nearly as disconnected and separate as we think. And so what one of you might want to ask may feel very personal and very specific to who you are in your situation, but you'd be surprised at how often the answer to your question is really important for everyone else. So again, I hope that the majority of our time will be some dialogue and questions about questions, and that will be a lot of what we're doing today. But first, I'd say let's have a little short prayerful moment and then a guided visualization. I think that would be fun, and I'll try not to take 40 minutes for this. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I'm going to invite you to sit comfortably but alert. And this is an important posture. So you want to be alert enough that you're not going to get too drowsy and fall fast asleep quickly, although it's okay if you fall asleep because sometimes you just need the rest. And so you want to be alert enough that you're dignifying the work that you're doing, and you want to be relaxed enough that this isn't painful or uncomfortable. With that, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. You're certainly welcome to just sit and stare at us, but I think it's nicer if we all do the same thing. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and then take a big, 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 big breath in and just hold it. And let's just stop while you hold it and just notice what you're feeling, thinking, what's going on, and breathe it out when you're ready. And we're going to do that a few more times. Really big, exaggerated breaths in, and then hold your breath. When you hold your breath, use that as a moment of stillness to pay attention to the energy in your body, mood, mind, environment, and then breathing out as long and fully as you can. And try to do that at least 3 or 4 times. Really big inhales, longer holds, and extended exhale. And then we're going to switch to softening the breath. Just let it be gently and softly in through the nose. If you can, draw it down into the belly. Breathing out through your mouth. Softly but long, slowly. And imagine that your energy is slowing down and settling down. Imagine that as you ground and center the energy in yourself, you bring the energy of the room and the space that you're in to a more peaceful place. And you can continue to work with your breath and energy while I share this little prayer. And if prayer is not for you, you can use this time to meditate or set intentions, and we will move from the prayer into a little journey together. To the one that is all, our source, our substance, spirit, God, to the mystery that is within and beyond all things, we give thanks for this day. We give thanks for this moment, that we might have the extraordinary privilege of being alive together against all odds and probabilities, that we would find our way to this circle in this moment. And so we take this moment and we bless each other in our own way, pray for each other in our own way. And we ask that this little gathering and all who join us now or in future times, that for this time that we're together, we would feel the presence of love within and around us, that we would feel the presence of wisdom and wholeness within and around us. We pray that we together in this affirmation, in this contemplation, that we would raise the energy of loving wisdom in this world. That in this moment, we share the vision that all things, all beings, all people who we have loved and lost, people who have touched our lives, people who are in our lives, people who shape our world, that all beings everywhere, all people on this planet would feel just the subtlest rise in their vibration, that all people everywhere, imagine this together in this moment, just feeling a pause as though something deeper and wiser and more loving inside them were asking, for expression. We pray for the barriers to this to be released. We pray for peace in the minds and hearts of people so that this higher wisdom of loving connectedness, service, helping, healing, learning would rise everywhere. And we release into the light anything that is not of the light in ourselves and for each other and for this world. A prayer for peace. Peace in places where there is bloodshed and war, fear and violence. Peace for the lonely, peace for the lost. Peace for the struggle of this human life and the challenges for any and all of us when we face the imbalances of body or mind or heart or soul. May we together be a part of this evolution and restore the wisdom of the soul in our lives and our world, so that we might be guided, each and all, to a better place of wholeness, love, and healing. For all these things and the prayers that remain in our hearts and minds, we lift them together. We say Amen. And with eyes closed and hearts open, I encourage you to see the darkness of your closed eyes as a kind of darkened corridor. Imagining yourself now moving in that corridor, walking in the darkness, but without fear. You know you're going to a dimly lit doorway that is safe, that is waiting. It is a corridor that our prayer has presented you. Imagine yourself walking down, down, down this beautiful corridor until you stand in front of a dimly lit, beautiful doorway. Don't move quickly. Use your imagination, your intuition. Just be creative and see as best you can this door, this precious door. Is it square? Is it rounded? Is it large or small? And when you open this room, you will go to a sacred place, and you don't need to know where that is yet, or maybe you're already feeling it. Could be anywhere in time or space, any dimension, any time in history, but it's a place your soul wants to go right now. And so you let the door open and you find yourself moving into that room or that place or that land, or that dimension, whatever it is. What might be waiting for you on the other side? And just be creative, just be open. There's no wrong way to do this, what you see or feel or think. Take your time, looking at the colors, the textures, what's in the place. What does it feel like to be there? And then, if it hasn't happened already, you will sense or see that someone with guidance and love is coming into this space to talk to you, to be with you. Take a moment to see who it is or what it is. Or just pick the first person that comes to mind. Don't overthink it. See them. Feel them there with you. Let yourself picture the connection, the interaction. Could be from a distance or a handshake, a hug. Only you know. And then in your heart, you can ask why they've come, why you're seeing them now. If there's anything that they've come to give you or to tell you. If you need to ask questions, you can, but keep the interaction very simple. A word, a few phrases. If there were guidance in this place, what would it be? And if you need to say or do anything to bring closure to this connection, you can do that. And if you can encapsulate that in just a simple message that you want to remember, as if you were going to write it down later today, what's that simple message? Can you feel that in your heart or record it in your mind? And even though you'd probably like to stay there, as I would, you can feel the pull back to the door. And when you're ready, see the door opening, the corridor again. You can always go back. But we're going to move into the darkness, carrying whatever word or feeling or lesson, and through the corridor, down the corridor, but now like we are rising up towards today. Up we go. Till we become more aware of the room that we are in, the place where we're sitting, our thoughts, our feelings, our time together. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And if you like, you could even take a moment to write down your note. I'm just writing down mine. All right. So we're going to transition into conversation and sharing. But I wonder if anyone here feels comfortable sharing in a phrase or a word or a few words what came to you, if you would like to. Some of you maybe didn't really get it, or you got distracted, or you just checked your phone. That's fine. It's your time. But if there's something that you did feel or think or see that you could summarize in just a word or a phrase or two, would anyone like to share that with the group? Gayla shared safe, healed, and whole. If you'd like to come on and say it yourself, just put your hand up or unmute yourself and jump in. That goes to anyone and everyone, or you can put it in the chat. So who's going to jump in?
Can you hear me?
Carrie, go ahead.
Mhm.
We'll do Carrie and then someone else. Yeah.
I just got a new refrigerator about 15 minutes before we started, and I have taken all my pictures and stuff off of my old one, and now I have a brand new opportunity to a new slate. And I was just going through a bunch of pictures to figure out what one I'm going to use, and gonna maybe do 2 or 3, but I'm going to get a poster size picture done at the CVS, and it's going to be of a beach, and and I have many of them. So I just my word and my appreciation when I opened the door was a veranda looking at that beach, and aloha, breath, and gratitude for breath, for the life that we have in our and lungs, and the opportunity to be here.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that's mine. And I wish I was there, but I can go back.
Beautiful. Thank you, Carrie, and enjoy your refrigerator. It's nothing like a
Thanks.
new refrigerator. Now, I think I heard another voice. Someone was going to jump in. Barbara.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mine was interesting. I've done a similar meditation before, and this is kind of throwing out a question to the group also. Have you found a group of like-minded people like we are in this group in your community that you can, share with, talk with, explore with? Because that is something I've been looking for several years, and I haven't found that group or that tribe. And in my meditation, I mean, I see that person, but that person, I don't see that person's face. It's just interesting because I haven't made that connection. And at the same time, I've had enough of the experience where you say things in a group and it's like I've sucked all the air out of the room and everybody just doesn't know what to say. So
Yeah.
so more often than not, I might not say anything.
Great. I'm glad you brought that up, and that'll connect when I say a little more about the book.
Okay.
Well, I'll just say it. I mean, one of the reasons why I wrote Spiritual Experience, and I have to say, when I say one of the reasons why I wrote it, I don't know if this is what I intended at the time, but what I see in it now is that one of the values of the book is to help people like me, like you, who have spiritual experiences but don't always have somewhere to put them, don't always have people to talk to them about, and sometimes, and I'm not saying this is you, but might even question the validity, particularly because of our culture and conditioning, right? We're just too often surrounded. Well, for me, I am too often surrounded by people who would hear half of the things I've experienced in life, and they would just be like, what the, like, don't let your kids play with that guy. So, yeah. So I wonder if anybody wants to answer the question that you put to the group, though. Does anybody here have a fruitful local spiritual community that lets you be fully yourself? I guess you can put your hand up if you want, just say yes or no. Or you can. So David, like, kind of, and Jan, how about you? What about that group you got there?
So I'm part of a meditation group. There are 8 women in the group. And I started this group during COVID, but we now meet once a month in person. So I got to your group a little bit late because I was with them this morning. And actually this morning I was telling them about your book, talking about spiritual experience, and everybody in the group is very interested in the topic. And it feels really profound to share it with people in person.
Mhm.
I mean, I love your group, and I rushed home so I could be here in time for your group. But it would be so much better if we could hold hands with the people in, and I would love to meet some of them in person. And what I'm feeling most from the discussions in your book is wanting more spiritual experiences,
Mhm.
and really wanting to know from people in this group if they found ways to make them happen more often. I mean, I did get the idea somewhere of, instead of doing a gratitude journal, to do a journal of writing down spiritual experiences. But
Yeah.
some days I don't have anything to write down. And so I want one every day. I want it to happen more often. So that's a question I'm putting out to the group. How do you get more of them?
So I'm going to suggest let's just keep layering our answers and comments on so anyone can answer Barbara's now or Jan's now, or go back to my original question. That's fine. Jan, I think last week, and I'm not saying this is what you remembered, but last week, one of the things I had said was maybe at the end of the day, instead of doing a gratitude note, you actually think about, was there a moment of what I would call ordinary magic, or in the language of the book, there's two more general categories. One is truth and beauty, and the other is ordinary magic. And both of those are things that can just happen anywhere. Like it's the way the snow falls, but it's a moment that sort of takes your breath away or gives you a dramatic pause. And often, particularly with truth and beauty, we just chalk it up to, a moment of just appreciating something nice. But what I would encourage people to consider, and this is really addressing Jan's recommendation, is to ask that question. I mean, is that all it is? Is it just a moment of aesthetic appreciation? Like, oh, you know, that's a pretty flower. Or is there something in that very moment that takes us out of our worry, our stress, our self-focus? Is there something about that moment that maybe reminds us of something more meaningful, more profound? And I would say usually yes, although we keep going. So we don't stop to just breathe it in. And maybe, as Jan is saying, maybe at the end of the day, to just kind of pause and go back, it can help. Now, here's the last part of the exercise, though. Typically, when you start doing a journal about something you experienced during the day, and this could be gratitude, this could be a mood journal, this could be a diet journal, it causes you to pay more attention. And it's not the recording of it that becomes the real gift. It's the increase in focus. And so then sometimes, and this actually happened to me yesterday, I had this stressful day. It's not important why, but cars breaking down and computers breaking down and kids home from school and all this stuff. And right in the middle of it, I found myself just walking from A to B outside. And I was looking at my phone because I was, so late and behind. And I realized that this walk to my office was going to be 30 seconds. And I thought, why don't I just make the most of these 30 seconds? So I put the phone away. I slowed my pace, I relaxed my body, I caught my breath, and I just quite literally looked around. And in that moment, my awareness and experience went from narrow, which is what's next, what didn't I do? And it was suddenly, noticing that there was a break in the clouds and we had a beautiful blue sky moment. The snow, we've been having snowstorms. Snow was sparkling on the trees. The air was a little bit warmer and moister than it had been. And it was just like a really beautiful moment. And didn't last super long. I still had to get on with it. But to me, that's an example of cultivating it through awareness. However, someone put in the chat, increasing meditation. Yeah. I think meditation brings more synchronicities more often. silence, time in nature. Yeah. And Joni, good advice. Sometimes, Barbara, we have to just create our own group. Reach out to the people that we like or trust or know and say, would you want to? And it can be helpful to do it around a book. So you could take a book and say, what if we read this book together? Book groups are kind of like, I think, a secret spiritual segment of modern society. You know, very often it's just sort of fun and casual and everyone ends up just eating a lot of cheese and drinking wine. But I think there's equally many book groups that's not what it's about. You know, there's friendship and fun, but it is an opportunity to stay on task with certain topics or themes, and people feel the permission to share. Oh yes, Joni, great book suggestion. Read Spiritual Experience. That's a good book to read. So we're going to go back to the group. I will say one last thing now, back to Barbara's comment about community. I find that community, small spiritual community, is meaningful when there's a shared interest in a philosophy, a teacher, or a practice. And when people are looking for a group or connection, that's consistently what I recommend, which is there's got to be, or it helps if there's a unifying point. So like we're all studying Kabbalah, or we're all studying psychic mediumship, or we're all studying, I don't know, ancient Vedic texts, right? Or we're or it's practice oriented. We're all doing yoga, we're all meditating, we're all forest bathing. Or it would be around a teacher. And that could be like, we're going to study the work of Thomas Merton, or we're going to study the work of Deepak Chopra, or Mirabai Starr, or, you know, whatever.
Or Jonathan Ellerby.
Or Jonathan Ellerby. Seems absurd, but yes, that could be too. Somebody else comment for about Barbara's question or Jan's question, or something that came to you in your meditation. Yes, Eve, come on in.
Okay. I had a group, 3 women, 2 months ago phoned and asked if I would join them in a group. And I said, well, you know, I think a bit different than you do because we all had the same background. And they said, yes, that's why we'd like you to join us. And so we made an attempt at this particular book, which it hasn't gone well. So I've suggested we get your book, and we're all going to do it as soon as we get our hands on it.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've told them about your website. I said, go on here and you can listen to Jonathan, and then we can get together and we could invite a few more people. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, that's exciting. And hey, if you have questions after you guys have discussed it, that could be cool. I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, now Christine, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, so thank you for that meditation experience. This one was similar to one I had in the past, but in this meditation, I met a friend. And this is a friend I had to move just before my senior year in high school, and she became my good friend, and our friendship lasted through our adulthood. Recently, I contacted her and found out that she has a terminal illness, progressive neurological, devastating. Anyway, we tried to have a conversation over the phone, and this woman, who is a prolific conversationalist and writer, was really unable to speak coherently with me. But she met me in this cave today in the meditation. And she informed me that she would be passing soon, but that she would be making contact with me from the other side, which is so important to me right now, because I really feel that we are all here, all of you and us, are here to bring about unitive consciousness, to help in the coming together of unitive consciousness. And with that in mind, I did want to share with you, as you prayed this morning, I'm learning a new way to pray that has to do with quantum physics. It's a way to collapse the wave into a particle
Mhm.
and make your prayer manifest. And that is to pray as the Navajo Indians pray,
Mhm.
that what you want to see happen has already happened.
Mhm.
And you're in head and heart coherence, and you're so thankful or grateful. It's the intensity of the gratefulness that collapses the
Mhm.
wave
Mhm.
and makes the manifestation happen. So I've been experimenting with that, and it's been a joyful experience.
I love that. Thank you. And and actually, because we're hosted on Humanities Team, there's a few teachers that teach about that. And of course, probably the first that made it something really known or brought it to attention was Greg Braden, right? And I'm sure you're aware of his work. So I love this. Thank you, Christine, for offering that to people. And I hope people will try it. You know, it is funny. I will say that I have a way of praying privately that's maybe a little more like that. And yet, for some reason, I don't know. This is my style when I'm with people. I'm just a little attached to it. But having said that, I really, really recommend what Christine's talking about. I think it's worth trying. Anybody else? And thank you. Let me actually build on something you said. So I mentioned that today I would say a few things about why I wrote the book. So one was so that people who have these experiences don't feel isolated and that they can understand them. And I think, you know, I think there's social reasons for not wanting to dwell on our experiences, whether it's distraction or conditioning. I think there's also some difficulty feeling the permission to really indulge in the contemplation of our spiritual experiences, because sometimes these things it's sort of like we hear a voice in our head that judges the experience. And when we think about mental health issues and people who have, you know, visions or psychoses that are not healthy or not good for us, it's like we've really come to a time where too much of the communities that we are surrounded by either don't talk about spiritual experience, or the only images we have are horror movies and all ghosts are bad and evil and they're dangerous entities. Or, you know, we hear terrible stories of people who hear voices to do something terrible to their family or whatever. But of course, none of that spiritual experience. It's just, I mean, there are mental health issues. That's a thing. And there is also the arts and creativity, and people make up titillating stories so that people can be scared and have a little dopamine rush and you know, shut it off at the end of the night. But we can't lose sight of the importance of these things. And the point is, as Christine mentioned, I believe they are all compelling us towards unitive consciousness. So to not pay attention and and feed our spiritual experiences or indulge in them is to miss something, not only for ourselves, but for our world. Joni, come on in.
Thank you. Boy, beautiful, beautiful people speaking about beautiful experiences today. Thank you all. I wanted to just share my experience in the meditation guiding because, like, you know, it was just like maybe 2 minutes, and I'll probably spend the rest of the afternoon and when I come home tonight from an event, you know, pondering it and re-entering it and spending more time with it. So, you know, I walked down this hallway to this beautiful wooden doorway. And when I entered, I looked to my left, and there was another doorway, arched doorway. And when I looked at it, I immediately looked away, but then I turned back to it, and it was full of flames. I mean, it was just blaze. And immediately my mind went, it's hell. Stereotypical hell. I should run. And instead, I stepped forward and I walked up to the flames in this doorway. And as I stood there, I just felt it. I saw it. And as I guess the only word maybe is to surrender to it, to accept it. It just began to fade away. And as it faded away, I was standing there in this huge doorway that opened into just this extraordinary scenery, natural nature scenery. But it was everything in it was so enhanced, the mountains, the trees. I wanted to like grab a paintbrush and paint it because it would be the most gorgeous art that had been on this, I could put on display. And then when you mentioned, someone maybe coming to greet me, I turned to my right, and in my mind, I'm kind of like going, okay, a person, and nothing's happening. And I'm like, oh, and it's always tough for me to allow like a humanoid type being to come to me. But I said, okay, whatever. And when I said that, this very large owl appeared in front of me. And as I looked at it, its face, its head was the face of a fox, but the rest of the body wasn't of an owl. And, I asked, do you have a message for me? And I think I received one, but I don't remember. And but it's there. It's there in that space, and I'm going to return to it probably late tonight. And it's okay if I don't retrieve the message because it's embodied. It's here. But I think what I want to just stress is that spiritual experience, we always think of it, or I have always thought of it as like this moment or these series of moments. And it's everything beyond that. It's like when you open up a present, you unwrap it. The present isn't the wrapping, it's what's inside and that you receive. And it's this way, for me, a spiritual experience is discovering what that gift is, what that present is.
Aha. I got that. Can I jump in now?
Absolutely, I'm done.
So there's a few thank you, Joni. There's a few things I'd love to just quickly touch on, and we can still get into couple more comments. The first is, I don't know if you caught what Joni just said very beautifully. Hopefully, yes, but I want to rephrase it, because at first I wasn't catching it, and then when you gave the gift analogy, it was like, oh, I got it. And what I heard you say, you could put in a lot of different ways, like the experience itself is the tip of the iceberg or whatever it is. but it's this idea that what we point to as the spiritual experience is really the initiation of living a new energy or living into the experience. And it's interesting because in a lot of the sort of more substantial ceremonies of my life, and I don't have the time to explain what a Sundance ceremony is in Indigenous culture, but in the Sundance tradition, which has been my tradition, you know, it's this very intense 4-day ceremony that is 4 days of ceremony before and 4 days of ceremony after. But it's always said that your life and your journey towards Sundance is the ceremony, and how you live, what you receive in the ceremony is the Sundance. So it's this idea, like Joni is saying, is that life becomes a spiritual experience through these rich moments of insight. The other thing, speaking of Indigenous tradition, is that in my experience of Indigenous cultures around the world, which is like reasonably extensive, although not obviously the same as being born and raised that way, embodied learning, embodied transmission is, I would say, almost always more important than any mental information. Now, this is not to set up one culture better or worse, and I'm not saying mental information is not important. I'm only wanting to affirm that when you have a, quote, vision or spiritual experience, it is generally believed that it's enough to see something, feel something. You don't necessarily have to get a takeaway tool or, you know, insight that you can check off on your list. It's much more about just trusting that every single spiritual encounter, small group, ceremony, vision, dream, reading, whatever, it's informing you, it's shaping you, and more often than not, it's embodied. It's not something we know. The last thing is, it's always interesting to me when people share their experiences, and I love when, you know, we get together and we get a little picture of one person's vision or another, because I've seen that burning doorway before in my life. I've seen a similar door, and the interesting thing is, you know, when I saw mine, and I'm only sharing this to make a point about archetypes and spiritual forms, you know, mythical imagery, that it's real, it has power. And fortunately I got some coaching, because a voice behind me said, like, go through. And the message was, go through and don't look back. And the fiery door wasn't, as you concluded, Joni, which is why it dissolved, it wasn't to a fiery place. It represented, if you could use that language, or it was the intensity of the threshold I had to cross. It was like a fiery door, but what was on the other side was quite wonderful. And so there you go. I wonder if somebody else would like to jump in with a comment or something, question. We're going to wrap up in 5 minutes here. Leona, come on.
Hi, everyone. With regard to spiritual groups, when
Yeah.
I'm in a group, it feels like a spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even if the topic is not spiritual, it isn't something spiritual that's bringing us together. Just the interactions between people and among people, it feels like it's a spiritual connection to people. And the other thing I wanted to say is I go to a church that has a lot of ceremony in the service. And when I'm there, even though there's no interaction among the members, we don't have a Bible study, you know, but during the service, I feel so connected to them, and I feel such love that's present in that sanctuary. It's, yeah. So sometimes you feel connected even though you're not even interacting.
Yes, thank you. That's a wonderful, thank you. I appreciate that's a wonderful thing to share, which is that, you know, I'm trying to think of how to say this briefly. You know, it's when it comes to community, I think sometimes we think of it as a noun and sometimes we think of it as a verb. And when you engage community as a verb, which is what you do, right? And someone just wrote being fully present in the moment, then it reveals so much emotion and connection. And that's there in the room for everyone, but not everyone's feeling it. Now, Leona's feeling it, which is fortunate. And so there's a way, and this is also in the book, there's a way that we can kind of make, so to speak, or no, reveal the spiritual element of just about anything we do. And as Teresa said, it is very much about present moment awareness, because the more present we are, the more we experience the energy of what is and the sensuality of what is, right? The sounds, the smells, typically most spiritual experiences don't have a lot of what I would call discursive thinking. Most of it's like, ooh, wow, oh, that's cool. What am I supposed to remember? Oh, how does that work? It's less, complicated. So we're going to wrap up. And if that's okay, as long as no one has anything that they're just like, okay, Barbara, go ahead. Barbara Boucher, our last voice of the day. You got it.
Okay. A couple of things. I think the idea of us all reading the book and maybe every other week or whatever, discussing each chapter rather than doing it week after week, I think sort of having a I think, anyway, I'm in favor of that.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't feel spiritual. And I go to yoga class, and it's about the only time I can get out of my head. And this morning, I felt that this morning. So maybe that was a spiritual experience, even though she was pushing my butt.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I belong to a women's group that we've been together for 30 years, and our common interest is being the outdoors. And recently we were up in Rocky Mountain National Park for our Christmas get together. And honest to God, it was like I went to heaven. It was just gorgeous. I mean, the sun was out, the peaks were out, we were having a great time. And I kind of have to say to myself, maybe I do have more spiritual experiences. And the other one I just mentioned quickly is just like a couple of nights ago at my front window was the sun was setting and the clouds were just magnificent to the point I called my cat and I said, come over here. I want you to see this. So I'm just those are just things that, as I said, but I need to be more aware of what comes by and pay more attention to it.
Well, that's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you. Because I think what you help point us to is the fact that sometimes the only thing that separates us from people who have more spiritual experiences is the fact that we may just be not including a lot of special moments as spiritual experiences, like a sense of awe, a sense of wonder, a sense of deep appreciation, a sense of deep gratitude. I'd say all those qualify as spiritual experiences. Now, they're one category. So no, it's not the same as seeing your dead relative standing at the foot of your bed with an old book that you're supposed to go find in some, farmhouse, and then it turns out to be true. Okay, that's pretty out there. But that's like, it happens, but that's like 1 in a million. the truth is there's these other kinds of spiritual experiences. And I think you just gave some great examples. And I would say, yes, those all absolutely count. Well, kind of hate to say goodbye. It'd be nice to just keep hanging out. I sort of feel like I'm supposed to leave you with what the message I got was, and maybe that's selfish, but maybe not. I mean, I am hosting this. So I saw my dad. I went into a room that I've been going into for like 30 years, and I never want to go into this room. It's just always there. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it looks like it's maybe in an old, I don't know, 18th century manor. Big table and a big fireplace and a library, and I wouldn't mind going there, although I'd prefer to go like to Bali or something. But anyway, and so my dad was in there. My dad's been passed on for almost 30 years now, and he said, you know, my shorthand is so bad that I can't read it, but I'll have to rethink it. But he said something like, you're not going to like this, because I had something very specific in mind I wanted guidance for. And he said, sometimes there are no answers that can be given. Sometimes you just have to keep going. And you have to understand that the journey itself is cultivating both the answers and your capacity to receive them. And that's it. You're going to get there when you get there. And I was like, Dad, you couldn't just tell me what to do. But I can tell from the nodding heads, it's like, no, it doesn't even work like that. When people give us answers, typically we don't really hear them anyway. So it's a nice note to end on. And thank you all for being here. Maybe we'll see you next week. And if for some reason I'm not here next week, Garth and I will figure out something cool and interesting to do on your behalf. And otherwise, I will be generally around every Thursday, same time and place. Lots of love.
Thank you.
And as they say, peace out. Bye-bye.